Are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Health Coach Tip Tuesday, where we talk about tips, tools, and resources to help your health coaching business. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. And this week I have our FDNP Association Director, Jennifer Woodward, here with us. Jennifer is also an FDNP. She works with clients. You work in a clinic, right? Or in association with a clinic?
We were totally just talking about COVID. So I moved home when COVID happened, but I loved my clinic. I got to work with a group of chiropractors and we just had the best time. So I'm all virtual now, which has its own perks, but it's definitely different.
Awesome. Well, glad that you're able to keep working. One of the perks of being an FDN, right?
Totally.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about estrogen dominance, a men's health epidemic. It is Men's Health Month. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I feel like men don't get enough love when it comes to like alternative health. It's either like really geared toward fitness and bodybuilding or nothing.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, men have just as many issues health-wise as we do, and we can definitely find some interesting stuff when we run some functional labs on them. And this week, if you comment estrogen in the comments below, we're going to send you an estrogen busting recipe courtesy of our lovely Jennifer Woodward here.
Glad to share it. I am like kind of obsessed with carrots for their estrogen busting property. So I'm excited to talk more about that with you before we hop off today, Jess.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure we talk about that so you guys know what it is you'll be getting if you comment below. So I see a couple of people have jumped on. Feel free to start messaging, putting comments, let us know where you're at. If you have any questions as we're going through, and we're going to be sharing a Dutch test today, which is actually from Jennifer's husband, and kind of pointing out some of the things that she was able to find for him that showcased estrogen dominance. And then we'll talk about a little bit of what she was doing to kind of help him, right?
Totally. Yep. Excited.
Cool. So do you want to give us a little bit of background, what was going on with your husband before we like kind of jump in?
Yeah. So let's see. I took this 2017. So I'd been an FDN for a year. I'd run a couple of hormone tests on myself and then starting to work with clients. And then I found the Dutch test and ran that on myself. And I just fell in love with all the markers that we have on this test. And my husband is kind of like, I mean, he's a reluctant, functional medicine adopter. He is into like natural health, but he's also like a born cynic. So every time I run one of these tests on myself, he's kind of like behind me, like, hey, am I going to get one of those tests? So we ran a Dutch test on him just for fun. Now, I'll give you some background. So my husband was a lifelong athlete. He swam collegiately for USC. He was a high-level athlete. He just always has been. He takes great care of himself. He's super fit. I mean, now he's like 44, you know, so he's not as fit as he was when we ran this test, but he takes very good care of himself. He's very into like healthy eating. He was taking good supplements. So I was expecting to get like really stellar results when I ran this Dutch test on him. And that was not necessarily the case. In fact, that wasn't the case at all. I don't know if you want to pull it up, Justin. We want to talk like about the test, or if you just want to look at my editing there. I got some
Totally.
I just want to show you guys a couple of things. Now, men should have normal amounts of estrogen. Men also make some estrogen, just like women do. But of course, the levels are at about 1/10 of what women will make, right? And testosterone goes in the opposite direction. So men make testosterone at 10 times the amount that women make. A lot of this activity for men with their estrogen is bound up in their adrenal glands, and it's converted from other hormones in the body. If that conversion process is not happening appropriately, or if there's inflammation or blocking factors, you are going to have this buildup of estrogen like my sweet Beau had. It's actually his name, Beau. He's also my Beau. Like he had in his body. So this was a 39-year-old man who took great care of himself. And look at that estrogen load. On the Dutch test, we want to see like the dial kind of set to the middle of the two markers. So between that 6 and 27 is basically where you'd want to see a healthy younger man. And Beau's estrogen was crazy high. So once we found that, we were able to address some of the issues that were going on with him. And for him, that was like a 10-pound weight gain and some energy issues. So he'd gone from like his, I'd tease him because he had like an 8-pack and I just have like a 1-pack. He'd gone from that to like a 5-pack. He wasn't super happy about that. So we were using this to kind of help his exercise, but then also how he was feeling from an energetic perspective, because that had started to lag just a little bit too. And I'm going to talk about what we did there in just a second, but look at the testosterone too. This is an important kind of a marker for men. We have the Dutch test has this on the same line, because estrogen and testosterone are really, really close cousins of each other, right? On the steroid hormone cascade, the androgens like testosterone will convert into estrogens in the body. 3 different types of estrogen, even for men. And testosterone levels are a precursor to estrogen for men as well. And his testosterone levels look great, exactly where they should be for a 39-year-old man. And Jess, you've probably run these on some men too and seen like low testosterone, which is the opposite problem, right? Yeah. Yeah. And this, kind of presents symptomatically and in lifestyle. Like he was still able to build muscle. Like he, despite his lifestyle, had only put on 10 pounds, right? So he, and still had plenty of energy, a good libido. So those are things we'd want to see from a 39-year-old male. But it really is that estrogen pattern that's looking a little suspect for him. So
with this, just so that I can reiterate with people, so where it says the sex hormones little box here, we have the estrogen and testosterone, and then there's these little stars. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you guys can maybe get a closer look. So you see how there's these stars here on either side. We want it to kind of be in that range, right? Okay, so estrogen's like way high.
Way high.
Way high. Wow. And so you were saying that with that high number there, that it was kind of just showcasing as, 10-pound weight gain, and then maybe some fatigue, which, I mean, if you're carrying more weight, you're going to feel more sluggish anyway, right? Like just physically, but I can only imagine mentally. And I mean, as a woman, our hormones go all over the place. So we kind of get that ebb and flow throughout the months, but is it the same with men? Like, do they get kind of an ebb and flow through the month, or should this be not like that? It's a little hard with, because I'm so used to knowing a lot about how these things work with women because I'm a woman. And I know that guys have, everybody has cycles, but they shouldn't be so drastic like this, right?
Totally. What a great question. And I was actually just talking about this with a client today who got put on testosterone as a woman, and her energy and her mood was more balanced. And that's the effect that testosterone generally has on men. So for women, if we saw estrogen levels comparatively this high, that's usually goes hand in hand with really low progesterone levels. And that's going to cause a lot of the mood swings and PMS and just like, feeling like you're at the end of your rope as a woman a couple of days out of the month. But for men, they've got, plenty of that balancing testosterone hormone that really mitigates much of the emotional component of high estrogen. So if his testosterone was low, we might have some more emotional issues, but for him, he's pretty, stable in general. And we can see here with his testosterone that kind of supports what's going on with him. But I was going to bring up one thing quick, Jess, like when you think about like traditional medicine, right? When's the last time that a man went to the doctor and got tested for estrogen levels, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're kind of told from whether it's modern medicine or just whatever's out in the ether, testosterone is a male hormone, estrogen is a female hormone. Right. But when you go through something like FDN and you really start to learn how the body works, we all have all of these hormones. They're just in a different sort of level with each person and each gender, right?
Absolutely they are. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we're all human, so we all have some of these hormones, right? They're just in different levels, that's what makes us quintessentially male and quintessentially female. But that doesn't mean that a woman can't have normal or even high or low, testosterone in her body. And that's really what the Dutch excels at, is looking for some of those nuances and helping you as a practitioner address some of the issues that are going on. So, we want to leave those testosterone levels alone and really continue to support them.
Yeah.
Make everybody happier, right? But the estrogen is something that he and I really had to focus on. So how else can this present in men? You I don't know if it's politically correct to use this term, but you walk around Disneyland or at an airport and you've seen men who suffer from man boobs, right? There's a term for that, gynecomastia, where men's, breast tissue has started to expand. And that generally is due to higher levels of estrogen. You can even see this in our younger men, our 14-year-olds, our 16-year-olds, our 20-year-olds. They're experiencing that growth of breast tissue, and it's generally due to higher estrogen. Now, since my husband really, took care of his body and was exercising, that wasn't something that he was suffering from at that time. But if this had gone unchecked and he was continuing to live a standard Western lifestyle, he would be growing some man boobs, that's for sure. So we're going to talk about kind of what I did from a clinical perspective to reverse some of that estrogen dominance, but let's go ahead and look at some of the other markers on the test just quickly, like its cortisol pattern and DHEA. All right, so you can see there the under adrenal hormones, it says daily free cortisol pattern. And you can see what, a high patient value would look like or client value, and then a low client value would look like. And our cortisol pattern here looks pretty good, except for some relative elevation of cortisol in the afternoon. So that's something I like to look at with my clients too. And I've actually run the test on a lot of men, a lot of firefighters and policemen who are doing shift work and are having trouble with sleep and energy. And, that's where we'll see this cortisol pattern be a little bit off. So we did have to address that middle of the day kind of higher cortisol, because I wanted him to sleep really well at night, for him to be able to wind down appropriately. And the best things to do, with cortisol that's out of whack is really pull in those lifestyle factors, right? So instead of worrying about a ton of supplementation here, we just worked on, proper exercise, getting more rest into his day, like the ebb and flow of his day, and then making sure he had a healthy, lunch with plenty of protein and vegetables, instead of maybe some of those higher carbohydrate foods that he was, choosing to indulge in more often.
Yeah, no, and that's a good sort of point for anybody, right? Like, we talk about cycles. This test is all about cycles. Our hormones are all about cycles. And this really kind of showcases, when you look at this chart here, that there are cycles. You start off during the day, you need that bump to get you to wake up in the morning. And, it goes up in the afternoon, and then it should slowly fall. So that way you feel tired later in the afternoon. So you feel like you're resting. This is why it's always, we as health coaches might say to people, it might be better to do more strenuous exercise and stuff earlier in the day. And then if you're going to do anything in the evening, make it more light, like going for a walk or, some restorative yoga or something like that to help you relax. Because if you're doing high intense exercise in the evening, you're just going to boost that level up, and it's going to make it that much harder for you to kind of come down off of that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What a good point too, Jess. Yeah. Work with the natural levels and rhythms of your body, and the test that you run, as a functional practitioner, like an FDN, really gives you a clue into that cortisol pattern, and really solidifies it for your client, because they can see it, on paper, which is very helpful for implementing lifestyle changes.
Yeah,
for sure. So I did want to look at the third page, Jess, just to kind of show, where we get into the weeds with this estrogen issue. And
this is it.
That's it. Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So here, a couple of things I like to point out when we run these tests on men. Can you see my screen? No, I can't. I'm not showing my screen. So look at that second box on the left-hand side where it says androstenedione, and then there's a red arrow and a blue arrow, right? What that's showing is how a male's body is metabolizing its testosterone. So it's male pattern hormones. And you can see here, like, this is a pattern of, that's perfect. Yeah. These are the pathways, that he was metabolizing his androgens down. So he's pretty clearly, a 5-alpha pathway preferer. So he's, that testosterone that he's making is kind of being amplified. The effects are being amplified in his body. So this is just another marker of like, a healthy male, right? We want to see a male metabolizing his androgens down the correct pathway. But where we get into trouble is those androgens like testosterone and androstenedione, right, can also start turning into estrogen. And that's called aromatization. And if a man's not doing it appropriately or in a healthy manner, then we start to have estrogen levels that look like my husband's. And just if you want to pull over just a little bit, so we can see that E1, E2, and E3. Even men make 3 kinds of estrogens: estrone, estradiol, and estriol. Now that middle estrogen, estradiol, that's the most abundant and the strongest estrogen in both a female's body and also a male's body. And you can start to have some of these symptoms that we've already talked about, right? Putting on weight, not being able to metabolize things effectively. You can get into some GI symptoms. High estrogen in men can actually, and women too especially, can lower thyroid function. As estrogen goes up, the body's need for thyroid hormone also goes up. So this is how it starts to slow metabolism in a lot of people, right? And the other thing we love to look at on the Dutch test is this patient estrogen metabolism and normal estrogen metabolism. I like to see my clients in the green on that piece of the pie there, right? If they're highly green, if their pie is mostly green, that means even if their estrogen's a little bit high, at least they're clearing it out of the body appropriately, right?
Gotcha.
You don't want a man who has the possibility of getting an estrogen dominant cancer, right? Mm-hmm. That's not something you want to tell your friends.
No.
Okay. So at least this is looking like his body's metabolizing things appropriately. And this, again, is due to a relatively anti-inflammatory lifestyle that he's lived for most of his life. But if you do start seeing, that red and blue, the more unhealthy pathways, the 16-hydroxy and 4-hydroxy pathway creeping into taking more of your pie, then you're going to want to do some, a little bit more targeted therapy to make sure that your body's pushing down that safe or 2-hydroxy pathway. All right.
Wow. That's a lot.
Sorry. Yeah, it is. I forget that I run through like 3 of these a day. So it's a mouthful. I apologize for
no
questions.
For anybody who's watching this, this will be up on our Facebook and our YouTube, and we'll post it up on IGTV. So you can go back and rewatch it, pause it, write down what Jennifer's saying, maybe pull up your own Dutch test or one that you're working on with a client. And, you can look at some of this stuff that we're talking about here. I mean, we're just pointing out some of the main things that you might want to look for when we're trying to find something like estrogen dominance or estrogen issues within a client. And like this whole section here, if I'm hearing you correctly, just so I can maybe translate it a little bit for people, this part here with these little pies, this is looking to see how the body's actually handling the excess estrogen, right? So, if you're having issues with maybe your body's making more estrogen, but if it can clear it out and detox it out, and I would assume this is a lot to do with the liver function also, that, it's just about making sure to maintain this, but it could kind of flip if that wasn't working properly, right?
Exactly right. And all of your symptoms can be compounded, right? You'll feel even worse. So thanks for breaking that down, Jess. I'm really excited about the Dutch.
No worries. And we can all get really, really sciencey. And I think that this is the whole point of doing this, is so that we can really kind of showcase to people that there's so much to these tests.
Right.
This is why, it's really important that you either work with somebody who understands these, you do consultations with the medical directors, or get trained more specifically so you can understand these things, because there's so many great little pearls within these tests that you may miss if
Absolutely.
You don't really understand, just knowing what these little pies are doing just on a basic level can give you a clear indication. If you see something pop up in red, oh, I might not know what that is, but it's not good. So let me do more research and let me ask people for help so that I can really figure out what to do next with the client, right?
100%. And no matter how, deep and into the weeds we get in some of these tests, Jess, you and I have talked about this before, it doesn't change what we do with our clients, right? it's not really gonna, I'm always gonna have an anti-inflammatory diet. I'm always gonna advocate more sun and more nature and better exercise and more sleep, right? Those are the things that really change even estrogen metabolism pathways, right? So focusing on the main thing and making sure that our clients are bettering themselves in a holistic manner is really what we do at FDN at the end of the day. And, there's two specific things I did with Bo that really helped. And I'm going to share those with you. Not only, like I said, did we work on his diet, he got more protein, he got more vegetables, but we added two specific supplements to his regimen that really helped him get more energy, and he lost 10 pounds pretty quickly and just felt better, right? So I did use some DIM, some diindolylmethane. That's a supplement that, you can find anywhere, but it's basically concentrated cruciferous vegetable. So just think about like 100 pounds of broccoli put into one pill, right? And that is really what helps this estrogen metabolism, really like crystallize. It helps your body make sure that it's pushing that estrogen out. This simple compound, that's found in nature, right? Sulforaphane. It's so cool. And once his body got plenty of that, it took 3, 4, 5 weeks, but he just, like I said, started to feel better, started to have more energy, and he started to lose weight. Now, the other thing we did for him, as you can see at the very, very, very bottom of the screen on the left-hand side, there's a little fan dial and it says methylation activity. And this, this doesn't like diagnose, treat, or prescribe anything. It just kind of shows that his body needed a little boost in methylation, which essentially is just, helping your body to detoxify. So I gave him some high dose B vitamins, and we also made sure he got plenty of meat. And those were the two things that we added based off of his Dutch test that helped turn his symptoms around. So, men can really, really benefit from the Dutch test for some of these deeper hormonal issues, but then also for a breakdown of what's happening to like their stress hormones, their cortisol, and then their sleep hormones, because those are generally the issues that a lot of our clients are coming to us with, is energy complaints and sleep complaints, right? So it's all part and parcel of things that we can find, and the Dutch can be a great tool to use, to draw some of those conclusions that you might not get if you're just throwing supplements or diet at somebody willy-nilly.
Yeah, and those two things that you mentioned, energy production issues, whether you're feeling fatigued or you just can't seem to get up enough energy, and sleep, like, if you're not getting rejuvenation and you're not able to get enough sleep and really recover from what you're doing every day, even if you're high dosing with caffeine and all kinds of other things, like, you're just pulling from an empty cup constantly. And eventually what's going to end up happening is that your body starts stripping nutrients from other parts just to keep up with the load of what you're doing. And so you really sometimes have to take a step back as a person. And this is what we as FDNs and health coaches can help our clients to do, is to kind of like look at it from a bird's eye view and go, whoa, let's slow down. And maybe let's start from the beginning. Let's reassess your diet. Let's reassess your energy level. Let's reassess your lifestyle. Where can we remove stressors so you don't feel like you have to keep up and keep going every day? Because I think one of the biggest things that I would hope a lot of people have learned in the last year is how to slow down and reprioritize and build those sort of restful activities into their day or into their week, and really give thanks and be grateful for what's going on. So, sometimes it can be hard, especially if you're a type A person or if you're an athlete, to slow down because you feel like, oh, I'm missing out. I'm not going to catch what I'm trying to do here. But sometimes even taking one day off can help you go so much faster and further than if you were trying to keep running, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Amen, sister. Love it. And that's, just also the best reminder that it's not supplements that fix you, right? I was just talking about this with Ryan over on Quick and Nerdy, that it's not a pill that's going to make everything better, nor was it a pill that, brought Bo back into balance hormonally. It was everything that Jess was just saying, talking about slowing down, cultivating the correct mindset, spending lots of time, in community and outdoors and in great grateful, appreciation for sure. So thanks for that reminder. I see a couple of questions I just wanted to address. Jeff, DIM stands for diindolylmethane. It is a supplement which you can research and find, on FullScript or even Amazon. But do your research. Don't just take our word for it. Like, make sure you guys are diving into the research yourself, using databases to make sure it doesn't interfere with any other supplements or medications that your clients are on. It's just a suggestion based on this particular lab test.
And that's why we run the lab tests, is because we want to make sure that if we are going to recommend a supplement, we are assessing everything, and we have all of the information in front of us to make that kind of recommendation. And, if you're not too sure about a supplement like this, there are so many things that are very similar to this. This isn't the only type of help that you could have offered to Bo, but it obviously was the one that you felt was the best for him to get to where he wanted to be, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And to answer Shannon's question, she said, does the sex hormone test we're taught to read with FDN cover this, or do we need to learn to read the Dutch test to get this info on the screen today? So in the FDN class, we are taught the Access Stress and Hormones panel, which is a beautiful test. It's beautiful. And so I didn't start running the Dutch test until I'd been in practice for 2 years, and I would never recommend that you do. Just do I still run the Access Stress and Hormones panel on clients because it's such a telling and foundational test, and it gives you all the information that you need, even if you're a dude struggling with, some kind of outlier, estrogen dominant symptoms. So run that on men, run it on women, get very familiar with that test. And then if you feel like it, you can branch out to something like the Dutch, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, this is the thing that with FDN, like, we do teach you specific labs, but we're really trying to help you to see what you're looking for in any lab, right? And the one that you are trained on initially through the training is going to be the SHP Access Hormone Lab, and it does give you all of the hormones. You're still looking at your cortisol morning, noon, afternoon, nighttime, your DHEA in the morning, your estradiol, estriol, estrone, progesterone, melatonin, testosterone, and DHT. I'm looking at the markers right now so that I can make sure that it's exactly what you're looking for in there. And a lot of this stuff is going to be broken down really similarly to the Dutch. It's just a different test.
Right.
So
measuring a lot of the same things. And the cool thing just about, any of these labs is they're giving you reference ranges for being male or female. Even if you're a female and you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, there are reference ranges for where you ought to be biologically. So that's why I love, the Access and then the Dutch as well, because I'm not looking at Bo's estrogen levels compared to my estrogen levels. I'm looking at his estrogen levels compared to other men of his age.
Yeah. And I wanted to see if I can pull up just a sample report of the SHP real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Just so that people can kind of reference, because we just showed the Dutch. So let's just take a look so you guys can see what this looks like. So it is a little bit different in the way it's laid out, right? But you're still getting the same information. It's just not as pretty, probably.
It just tells you everything you need to know. The other thing is that it's $100 cheaper. So this is a foundational lab to work into your practice because it's affordable for a lot of our clients.
Yeah, but you still get your cortisol graph. You get your own cascade here, which kind of explains a lot of what we were showing in those little pie charts and on the Dutch test. And, you get your explanation of all the different hormones and what might be going on there. So, it is a little bit of a different test, but you still get a lot of great information in here, just laid out a little bit differently and a little bit cheaper.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I just ran this one on myself like 2 months ago instead of the Dutch, just so I can look at my hormones, in this way. And it's a beautiful test.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't think I've run this one. I ran when we still had BioHealth years ago, I ran the BioHealth hormone test, and then I ran a Dutch test years later. And, this was, I was still in the midst of all of my stuff. Like, I'm not saying I'm out of it completely, but it was so, it was so overwhelming that I was just like, I can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, now it's a little bit easier for me. But I love how this one, it has, it's pretty simply laid out, but it obviously shows you in red when something's out of whack here. So you have something to focus on.
Yep, absolutely. And let me answer a Seza's question. The Dutch test is an acronym. It stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. So yes, it's an acronym, but that's what it does. Get a saliva.
Yeah, and so these are saliva tests. Is the SHP, the saliva test also? I haven't run that one.
Yeah. The Access Stress and Hormones panel is a salivary collection, and then Dutch is urine, so dried urine. So you can send it through the mail with dried urine instead of like a canister of your urine, which makes it very easy for people to be compliant, and it weirds them out a little bit less. Some of the other tests we run are sending poop through the mail.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do, most of our tests are at home, so people will be able to take their sample, they put it into what they need to do, and then that's it.
Yep.
It's not so difficult.
Totally.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions from people? I love how there's been a lot of people kind of hanging on and listening today, and we had a lot to share. I think that the whole point of today's show is to really highlight how hormones, and especially estrogen dominance, can be a huge issue in men that gets missed because it's not something that most, traditional medical professionals really would consider to even look for. And so, like I said earlier, like I was always taught testosterone is for men and estrogen is for women, but we all have these hormones just in different levels depending on who we are and what's going on with us. And obviously, even as an athlete, they're going to be in different levels to a normal person who's not training all the time too. So, we always want to understand too that there's a baseline individually that we need to look at and consider and think about. And that's why it's so important to be able to look at those more intricate issues that you might see, like you had mentioned, the methylation, the way that the body's clearing the estrogen, because there might be deeper issues that you can work on. Was there anything else with Bo when you were going through this that you might have considered, or, like I had said with the liver congestion issues, that can be a big thing with estrogen. And I feel like liver is probably the next big thing that everyone's going to start talking about. Like everybody's got a liver problem.
Right. We do. It's true.
Yeah, but it's such a big thing, especially with estrogen, because I know, especially, I think it's the detox pathway too, right? Where it can kind of get clogged up, and then all of a sudden you have all these problems, like skin issues start coming up, and fat's not distributed properly, and
we
that's
should do
where
a whole show about that.
No, totally. But like that like spare tire look that people get is really an estrogen clearing problem in the liver. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If phase 2 estrogen metabolism is being affected, then absolutely it will. And that, it's a liver issue, but it's also like a gallbladder issue. And that gets more into women's health because, women are the ones with gallbladder issues, but estrogen slows everything down in the body when it's there in toxic amounts. And if your body can't clear it because you have to basically poop estrogen out. So if you don't have enough, bile to create a healthy, a bowel movement, then your body's just going to continually reuptake that estrogen, which can make these issues worse and worse. And estrogen, is both made in fat tissue, can be, and stored in fat tissue. And so, if your body can't access it, it just continues to kind of pile up and make your symptoms worse. But man, the liver is so important. And go ahead.
Oh no, that's such an interesting thing to think about when you say like estrogen is not only, works with fat, but it's stored within fat. And if you can't access the fat, right, like that's weight gain is such a huge thing when it comes to this. If you can't access that fat, and part of that is like, if you're holding extra weight, like you don't want to move, but you need to move to break that fat up. You need to drink lots of water to break that fat up, because the fat's not going to break up without enough water inside. And your mitochondria aren't going to make enough water if you're not moving and breathing. Like there's this like weird cycle, but you can start to see what happens, especially with, people who are sedentary, and men especially. Like if men aren't active and not moving, like it just becomes this cycle. And then all of a sudden, it ends up being like what we've coined in FDN, metabolic chaos. You don't know where it started, but it just starts to domino down.
Right. You're 100% right. And yeah, again, addressing all of those lifestyle factors instead of just one, like you were saying, all of those together is what moves the needle when you're trying to reach for that health goal. So, don't just try to lose weight. Like, don't just try to exercise more. Make sure that you're addressing everything, every part of your being, to actually create health instead of just in pursuit of, some kind of elusive goal that you think you need to have, right? Eat better, get outside, exercise appropriately, take your supplements if you need to, and run the lab. So yes, I know we're at time, and I see that you're, making sure that everyone remembers, put down estrogen in the chat if you guys want our estrogen busting recipes. Let me give you a quick synopsis of what this is. So I love using raw carrots in my practice to help clients detoxify excess estrogen. So this is Ray Peat, who is an estrogen and metabolism researcher. Dr. Ray Peat, this is his raw carrot salad. And estrogen or carrots actually have soluble and insoluble fiber that's shown in the research to sweep excess estrogen out of the body through the colon and really brings down symptoms of estrogen dominance in the body if you can, eat this 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. So the carrot's important. The apple cider vinegar is important for digestion. Coconut oil to help kind of clean and clear out your gut, and raw honey to just kind of help build your immune system. Then we're looking at sea salt to really feed your adrenals. So this is all together, a fantastic health promoting recipe for men or women. But I'd encourage you to use it as often as possible for a snack or with lunch or dinner.
Oh, and what a great time too in the summer to eat something like this. It sounds well, for one, very cooling, but just like really satisfying.
Totally.
Definitely going to try this myself. So yeah, if you guys want this recipe, and the recipe also comes with a little bit of a breakdown and understanding what this is doing for you and for your clients and their health, just comment with the word estrogen below, and this will get sent to your messages right away. And yeah, that's, I think we are, unless anybody has any more questions, which I think we've answered quite a bit today. I'm going to go ahead and let Jennifer go for the day, but thank you so much for coming on and, explaining to us estrogen dominance and using your husband's Dutch test as a way to kind of showcase it to everybody. This has been Health Coach Tip Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday on Facebook and YouTube Live. We also post later on IGTV, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And thanks to Jennifer Woodward, who is our Association Director, for joining us today. Any last words of wisdom or tips that you want to give people, Jennifer?
Yes, eat your carrots. That's the one thing that you can definitely do. Drink your water, and most of all, just make sure that you're pursuing stress management and rest, because everything's moving too fast, and that in and of itself can be enough to really put a damper on your healthy lifestyle. So practice the self-care that most of us are trying to preach. Do it for yourself, and reap the benefits. So thanks for having me, Jess.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye, everybody. I'll see you next week.